The crafting system in Last Epoch confuses a lot of players, but it's actually not that bad. It just takes a little bit of time to get used to the system, and once you get comfortable with it, you realize that it's actually very beneficial to your character, and you want to be using it as often as possible. The forge actually doesn't need to be near you. In fact, you can access this menu by hitting F anywhere, including any zone within the world map. Next thing you want to keep in mind is you need forging potential, and you can see on this item, it's called Mighty Iron Visor, 45 armor, 12% increased stun chance, and 20 forging potential. When I hover over this item, 30 melee damage, and there is no line for forging potential. So since you can't forge uniques or set items, even if you place them in and select something to add on, you'll never have forging potential. So if I want to add melee cold damage, I have no forging potential and I'll never be able to forge this item. So I've got a couple of items in the inventory that I am ready to forge and further increase the benefits on my character. I'm going to start with the helm. Another thing you'll see is there's prefixes and suffixes. You can have 2 of these by default. And there's a way to increase this, but it depends a little bit on RNG, and that's more of a late game feature. However, just to mention it, it is this glyph of despair. This allows you to seal an affix, add a small chance, and then you can add in another line, further increasing the benefit of this item for your character. The 2 most common ones that you'll use while leveling will be glyph of hope. This gives you a chance to use no forge potential, just allowing you to get more upgrades on the item, and glyph of chaos. This will completely change the affix when you roll it, allowing you to potentially get a stronger item, remove a stat that you weren't going to use, and replace it with one you would. So for this particular item, I'm going to add another prefix to start. And I want to do this because I've got an empty slot. You don't have to use all the slots. So if you had an item and you only use, say, one main stat, perhaps you just want to bump the strength and use the forging potential for that rather than adding additional affixes. For this character, I benefit a lot from vitality. Not only do my skills scale with the damage, but it also increases my survivability. So I'm going to add vitality on here in order to just increase the benefit that this has for the character. So I can go in here and then you can select what's going to be applied, and you can change the different shards here. I'm going for a prefix, and if you select something that can't be used, it'll be grayed out, so you don't need to worry about memorizing what can or can't be used. You can scroll through them all, and here I'm going to select vitality, and in this case I'm going to use one of these glyph of hopes. That's because I have 20 forging potential remaining, and when I run out of forging potential, I won't be able to do any additional changes to the item. So glyph of hope gives me a 25% chance that I won't use any and can continue to increase this. I'm going to go ahead and add the affix, and you'll see that vitality has been added. Unfortunately, the glyph of hope didn't work, so I've lost 5 forging potential, and at this point I can continue to upgrade the same stat or a different one. I'm going to continue to push the vitality up. In this case, the glyph of hope procced, so I got a tier 2, and now I still have 13 forging potential. I'll continue to push my luck a little bit. Now I'm down to 4. At this point, I've also got physical resistance on this piece, and I'm going to go into the character screen. You can see my physical resist is pretty low. So if I hit F to go back to the forge, I'm going to increase the physical resist because I want to make sure that I have a little bit of that stat accounted for. At this point, the item is out of forging potential, and I can't do anything else with it. I'm stuck with these stats. I can always swap into a rune here, and there are several runes that you'll pick up. Rune of Shattering will just essentially scrap or brick this item, allowing me to get some shards back and potentially use them for something else. Now I'm going to go and reforge this ring. Here we've got some options. So I've got strength, which is also beneficial, and a couple of resists. And as you saw, my resists weren't capped. So let's go ahead. We've got void and lightning resist. My lightning's at 50, my void's at 26, which is really low. So in this case, I'm going to try pumping this void resistance up. And if I just click here on the up arrow, it'll automatically select one of these void resistance shards if I have it. If I do not have one, there'll actually be a dash and you won't be able to click that. So this is a quick manner of just knowing what you can and can't upgrade. Again, I'm going to keep this glyph of hope activated. I've got a number of these. You'll be picking these up as you play. At this point, I've got over 100, so I'm going to go ahead and just use this for the majority of what I try to upgrade. Here we got a critical success, so we actually get a +1 tier. We actually got additional lightning resist, which is even better. So now we're getting double dipping in the resist, and the glyph of hope had procced. Now I've got my void resist bumped as far as it can go. The affix is max, so I've got a T5 or tier 5 void resist. And you can see at this point it has 41 void resist. So you can see now my void resistance is up to 67. So by going through all your gear, you can see how much of an advantage you're going to get by forging your gear as you continue to level and reach the end game. So I can put the same item back in, and now I'm going to go ahead and bump the strength a little bit. Because I was lucky and got a lightning resist proc, I've got 50 plus that 11 on the item once I re-equip it at 61. I'm at level 44 right now, and that should be sufficient for the point that I'm at. So I'm going to bump the strength up for some additional damage. Again, keeping the glyph of hope, we'll go ahead and upgrade this. And now we need to be level 46 to upgrade this item any further. And that's because we've used so many upgrades and been successful with the glyph of hope. So we will be to upgrade this item further, but we need to increase our character level to do so. So at this point, I can put this item back into my character's inventory and make use of it. Continuing on with another item here, you can see that my physical resist is at 58, and I'd like to bump this a little bit further. So I'm going to take the belt at this point, Go ahead and equip it. Now, if I can increase this physical resistance to 37, I know that I'll be capped with the current gear that I have on. So let's go ahead and see what kind of luck I get. 28, 40. So this is actually going to be capped for my character. Now I'll be over 75. So even though that affix is maxed, if we just pretend like it wasn't, then I would want to reroll something else in this particular case, because I'm no longer getting benefit over that 75% unless the enemy is reducing us with physical penetration. At this point, I still have some forging potential, and my character does not benefit from lightning damage. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and select the increase. Now I'm going to use a glyph of chaos. The glyph of chaos is just going to reroll this to a random prefix. We're going to test our luck a little bit here and see what we get. In this case, we got minion health regen, which is no better than the lightning damage that we had, but it's not a loss. I at least gave it a shot. And I can do this again with another upgrade since I still have 1 forging potential, but I need to be level 46 to go further with this item. It's often beneficial to take a look at your character screen, especially when forging to improve your resistances. In this case, I was going to skip over the amulet, which has 8 cold resist. However, my cold resist is still pretty low, so I'm actually going to go ahead and use that. Now, the cold resist on this item is actually on a prefix slot, and this is a more rare affix, but that means I have an empty suffix slot, so I can actually go in here and add cold resist to this slot, making sure to add the glyph of hope in place of the glyph of chaos. And that's probably the thing I dislike about the system the most, is that you have to be really careful that you constantly take your time to look at which glyph or rune is in here, because you can easily accidentally use something you don't want. So here I've got cold resist being added, and got the glyph of hope, which gives me a chance to use no forging potential. But I've got 17 forging potential after that first craft, which is unfortunate because I had 34, but I'm going to continue to bump that up. Here we got a critical success, makes up for the original roll, and here we've bumped it all the way up to T5, and I've gained 36 cold resist. So now when I go back at that character screen, you can see I've taken a bad cold resist value and made it into a really good one, really improving this character overall. I hope this guide has shown you the value of using the Forge as you continue to level your character. There are certain resistance values that I would say are more important than others as you work your way through the story. In general, physical and void resistance are very useful for characters. Most enemies will deal physical damage, and void resistance tends to be something that hits your character very hard when it happens to be there, but don't neglect any of the other resistances. Try to get as close to 75 as you can on all these values. If you're still lacking, you can always make up for them in some of your idol slots. You can place idols that give you resists that you're lacking, and this will beef up your character and help you get to the end game, at which point your character will continue to progress further. As always, thanks for taking the time to watch, and have a great day.